Steve McQueen, welcome to UCD and to the Trapdoor Theatre.
Thank you.
My name's Nicolas Pillai. I'm UCD's academic lead for Creative Futures Academy, and I'm joined on stage by 6 wonderful students drawn from the CFA partner institutions, UCD, IADT, and NCAD. All 6 have been working with me for months preparing for this event, Steve. And I should tell you, when we advertised this event, it's sold out within hours. So it's so wonderful to see this room full of students. I'm so pleased.
Thanks for coming.
And I think one of the motivators for me and Gráinne Humphreys of Dublin International Film Festival in partnering for this event was us knowing that your film Hunger has been on the Leaving Cert exam in Ireland for a number of years now. And so actually students who are coming to us come to us with you in their creative DNA. Mm-hmm. Speaking personally, Steve's films have provoked me, stirred me, occasionally made me ugly cry. I'm thinking of education. But more often filled me with hope and joy. It was really important to me that the first film that we screened in this room was Lovers Rock. And it was really important to me that the first guest in the Trapdoor was artist, filmmaker, writer, director, producer, Steve McQueen. Okay, so I'm going to go to our first student question. And this comes from Faith Nolan, who is one of my students here at UCD on the MA Writing for Stage and Screen. Faith.
Thanks, Nick.
Faith's friends in the audience, maybe?
Hi, Steve. This is a question that comes from my experience on commercial and film sets, but also as a student here at UCD. When you're on set, there's a lot of pressure to get everything right, especially when you're starting out. Whereas with education, it's intended to encourage you to make mistakes and try out new things. How do you balance the practical elements of delivering a project with the need to experiment and explore?
Oh, well, thanks again for coming. I really appreciate it. When I first sort of got into, obviously, on a film set, my first day on a film set was Hunger. I'd never been on a film set before, and I was never on anyone else's film set. The only film set I've ever been on was Hunger. It was my first day. And the first scene that I did was when a gentleman comes in to see his grandmother, and then someone comes in and assassinates him. That was the first scene I ever did, and the first time I ever was on a film set. I remember I was friends when I went to Amsterdam. The first person I wanted to meet, I wanted to meet Robbie Muller. Now, Robbie Muller is an amazing cinematographer. If you don't know him, please check him out. Please find out who he is. He shot all of Wim Wenders' films, all the Jim Jarmusch films, very important Lars von Trier films, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, Robbie was an exceptional cinematographer. In fact, he's one of the greatest. So I was very lucky to meet with Robbie. I met him at this cafe called the Wenders' cafe on the corner where he lived. It's kind of funny, named after Wim Wenders. So I met him and we started talking. And at that point, I used to talk very fast. I still, you know, when you're sort of talking, you don't really know if you're talking fast, and then someone puts you on camera and think, Jesus, I talk really fast. And I was mumbling and whatever, and he was, anyway, moving on. So what happened was Robbie went home, and he spoke to his wife, and he goes, how was it? I said, yeah, I met this guy. I mean, I didn't understand what he was saying, but I want to work with him. And what was interesting about Robbie was just totally himself. He was totally himself. He was a person who was just comfortable being a bit of a hippie, but he was, people will say, Robbie, do you know about the 2.49 camera? That he goes, no. And he'd be rolling his cigarettes. Robbie had about 3 or 4 lenses he would use, and that was it. Robbie said, you know this movie from 1949? What happens on movie sets is that a lot of times a lot of people try to lord it over you or try to intimidate you about their knowledge and about what they know and what you don't know. But it's very important you stick to your brief and stick to your belief in what you're doing and not to be intimidated. And Robbie taught me that. Robbie was just a person who was always himself. He was always just focusing on himself. So he didn't care about what this person thought, what that person thought. He was there. His intent was to do the best job he could, and it was about the film and being in the moment. Okay, this is a long story, but I'll chop it down. What it is the fact, what I learned from Robbie was to be yourself. Okay, and you as a woman on set, there's gonna be a lot of shit coming at you. There's gonna be a lot of, macho nonsense, or there's intimidation, or some kind of, how it is, with unfortunately, these things. And you just got to hold your ground and be direct and tell them what you want, and that's it, and put them in their place. I mean, you've got to be stronger than strong. You have to be, because there's a lot of shit that happens. Unfortunately, in the world, there's a lot of shit. But guess what happened? That microcosm of a movie set is what happens. And you just got to hold on to your belief and get on with what you need to get on with. So my first day on Hunger, there was some AD. It was all right. But, trying to make it, trying to make a point with me, but I wouldn't have it. It was like, I was not gonna be intimidated. I knew what I wanted to do. Even though I wasn't sort of the most sort of experienced person on set, I knew what I wanted, and I was very close to my DP, Sean Bobbitt, and that we got on with it, and that was it. So the first ever time I was on the film set was my own. I've never been on one ever before. Other than that, and I just want to, just like that, focus on what you believe in, and then be yourself. If you don't know, well then tell them you don't know. It's okay not to know. People start lying. Yeah, okay, no, so they say, you know what? Give me 10 minutes, and I'll come back to you. I don't know right now. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to sort of, in fact, there's strength to be vulnerable. There's a strength to sort of, to being totally yourself. And then they will behave, they will accommodate you, because they think, oh, this person's got bullshit saying to me they don't know. They will accommodate you, and then there's a belief. And then you'll lead by example, and everyone will fall in line, that's it.
I get the sense you enjoy being on set. You enjoy working with actors. Is that right? No, no, I might be wrong.
I enjoy people being them. Look, I enjoy an environment which is healthy, and unfortunately, the world isn't healthy. So sometimes you have to be a bit more forceful with how you want people to behave and to behave to you, meaning that there should be a situation where everybody should have an opportunity to be heard and seen and to be comfortable. So sometimes you have to sort of, get your hand on the steering wheel and put it back on track, sort of thing. That's all. Because, again, I see anyone on this movie set as if it was me. If it's the AD, if it's catering, if it's hair or makeup, that's me. How would I like to be treated? How would I like to behave? So, so that's why I want to be in an environment where people are collaborative, It's extraordinary. When you get it right, it could be a beautiful place to be.
Thanks, David. Our next question comes from Gráinne Johnston, who's a final year BA Music Film Drama student at UCD.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
How are you?
Steve, when engaging with complex histories of true stories, how does your research assist you in navigating the sensitivity of the event so that the film remains truthful while maintaining a focus on humanity and individuality?
Well, it's all about the research. It's all about the research. I mean, for example, with Hunger, for example, for me, it went beyond the pages. It went beyond the words in the book. It was always about what happened in between the words in the book. Was it raining that day? Well, what kind of rain? It was about the detail, the stuff which isn't necessarily in the history books, or which are told, which can have a huge impact on events. So for me, you could do all the research in the world, and often it's very didactic, very formal, and very, this date and that date. Well, did he have tea or coffee? Did she come in, and what was her process? Little details like that for me fulfill an understanding of what it is to be human within the sort of idea of what history is, because history is yesterday, and I just want to make it sort of alive in a way and relevant. So we did. So for example, with Hunger, we did a lot of research, a lot of interviews. Myself and Enda Walsh, we did a lot of talking, we went back and forth, and a lot of talking. Just talk until your mouth gets tired, and then you get into it, and then you sieve through it. Again, the details. Well, what was it like to sort of be in a prison cell where, excrement on the wall and then blue bottles were coming out, and then also all the sort of things which are never in books, but you just the feeling, the smell, the taste, the sound, all the elements which sort of make it much more present. So yes, and again, it's just talking and talking. And after sometimes you talk so much, you break people down, you get so tired, and you break through, Yeah. That's important, yeah. Okay, pleasure.
I'm thinking of works like Grenfell and Queen and Country, that there you actually went and spoke to families, didn't you? Spoke to family members.
Yes.
So it seems to me that's a really deep process of research.
Well, I think, I think trust is very important. And, getting to, there was a lot of, obviously with Hunger, was a lot of talking to people, a lot of talking to people, and the Sands family and prison officers and all kinds of people, people who were on hunger strike who survived, and other people who were involved in either situation of that whole narrative. So it was a lot, and getting trust, really. Very, very important.
The next question comes from Karen Varela, who is on IADT's Erasmus Kino Eyes MA for film directing.
Thank you. Steve, as a multidisciplinary artist, does your process differ when working with film compared to other artistic mediums? And do you find certain aspects more liberating or challenging in one medium over the other?
Okay, say that all again, because I know I just missed the first word. Sorry, apologize. Say it again.
Yeah, so as a multidisciplinary artist, does your process differ when working with film compared to other mediums?
Understood.
And do you find certain aspects more challenging or liberating in one medium over the other?
Okay. It's like life, it's like sort of eating cornflakes and then eating fish and chips. It goes down, but it's different. And what I mean by that is it's not a task. As my son said, I'm not flexing. It's one of those situations where it's life. Again, I always said that feature film is like the yarn. It's the novel. And art, what I do is like poetry. Again, it's the same device, pen and pencil or typing, whatever it is, but it's different. And one is fractured, compressed poetry, and one is a more obviously long form. I never had a problem. It's not a problem at all. How can it be? It's just a case of different ways of thinking. Different ways of thinking. I want to answer your question better than what I just did, actually. But it's just a case of different approaches, storytelling, and actually wanting to sort of compress and be concise in a movement, as art for me at least, has to be. And okay, yeah, got it. So with art, the only barrier you have, with narrative film, there's a beginning, middle, and end. With art, your only constraint is gravity. Your only constraint is gravity, meaning that, we can put it here, it is what it is. I mean, you have to make language from nothing to make something. And with narrative, there's a beginning, middle, and end. So your structure is already sort of given to you. With art, then the structure is gravity. It just has to exist. And does it make sense to some extent? That's it. So yeah, you're being thrown from one place to the other, but it's kind of exciting, to create. I mean, I went to art school first, so that I think was a huge advantage to me. And then film was something else. I always think, okay, film is easier, but actually I was just making a movie and I was like, bloody not. It's bloody not. It's really not. But anyway, I hope that gives you some idea, but it shouldn't be a challenge. It should be like wake up in the morning and brush your teeth. It's that simple, Don't think on it too hard. Just do not think about it too hard. Just do it. And
when you're making a feature, are you thinking about work that you could do for installation? Are you capturing things at the same time, or are you in a feature mode and then you switch? No. It's just do it, isn't it? It's not a task. It's not a task. It's not this and that. I don't differentiate. It just happens, and but one maybe could be put into this arena. The other one's that arena. But it's not. I don't have two parts of my brain are thinking differently. It's just different. Like speaking Italian and speaking English. That's what it is. Nothing of no interest, really. But saying the same thing, but saying it differently. There you go. I should have said that at the beginning, shouldn't I? Got there eventually. Thank you for your question. Thanks, Steve. Next question comes from Judit Csobod, who's a PhD candidate here at UCD. Judit's project explores women and gender minority improvising musicians. And I think your question comes from that a little, doesn't it?
Yeah, as a music scholar, I would like to ask this question from you. So, as a music scholar, I naturally notice the unique way you use music and sound in your work. It becomes much more than just creating an atmosphere or amplifying emotions. Could you tell us a little bit about your relationship with music as a person and as an artist, and the ways the sonic informs this work?
Well, I think sound is I mean, you know, I think it's actually more important than the images, really, to be honest with you. Because I grew up with radio. I imagine you got, obviously, in Ireland as great radio here as there is in the UK. You know, again, radio, how I grew up, I mean, when you listen to someone in the Amazon on the radio, they're in the Amazon. When you see someone on TV, it's like they've got a penknife slashing through, you know what I mean? You're in the Amazon, it's the sound, you're there. So the ambient, the audio, the ambient, the sort of sound is hugely crucial to me when I make make a picture film. And of course, music is another element which is sort of could just put so much more into a situation. Actually, it makes the images, it reduces it. You could amplify the images just by sound. And I've worked with some great composers and great sound designers. Obviously, I worked with Hans Zimmer on a number of occasions, who's of course great, and just having those kind of conversations. Actually, yeah, it's another story, but I can't tell you that one. But, he's a person who's just is incredible at talking through movement and sound and pace, as well as sound design. Because I love to get into that, because I think it's one of those things where you could just create. I mean, again, we had if it's anything I've worked on recently. I mean, again, 12 years, and the sound, and when you're in the South, in New Orleans and Louisiana, that sound is present. It's oppressive. The heat and the crickets, and it's always there, conscious, and it's always almost there's something mischievous about it, a third element. So no, sound, I think, me personally, sound is the most important thing. And it's just one of those things where you have to sort of really it's almost like radio dial. You tune into it and get, that's the frequency, we're here. And within that frequency, then you can put stuff on top, then you can improvise and so forth and whatnot. And I worked with Mika. She's extraordinary. I think she was in Lovers Rock. So working with her again was wonderful. Yeah. Hope that's is that good?
Yeah, just one more thing.
So, ask me
when you said that when you you kind of like do research and like how the history. So I guess sound is the same way. So when you think about, okay, did this person have tea or coffee? It's like you go into it and think that like, okay, and how did that sound? It's the same way, or like how did it smell? Like, do you when you go into that research mode, do you think of sound as well?
Yeah. I think again, it's because the art pieces I did before were all silent. The beginning with the black and white images I did was all silent. And again, it's about how you sort of again, I was just thinking of something like Shame. And again, Shame, we were going to make that in London, but at that time, that was when all that stuff came out with Tiger Woods, and the News of the World scandal came out. So we interviewing people in London didn't fly because they thought we were reporters talking about sex addiction or something like that. They no one wanted to get involved. Tiger Woods thing came out. Then there was the whole News of the World, so the people hiding microphones and so forth, so no one wanted to talk to us. So then let's go to where the sea doesn't sleep. Let's go to New York. So again, and of course, it's much more of a sort of a space where things happen on 24 hours, 24/7, as it were. So it's actually a great, in fact, a much more expansive narrative possibly than we would have had in London. And then you get to New York and you hear the sound of the traffic, the cars. And I mean, anyone who's been to New York, there's a constant, and that helped, that amplified the character that Michael Fassbender played in the sense of the pressure and the constant sort of drive, like their addiction. So that was amplified. That was wonderful. It's like that smell, that sort of that environment and the sound of the environment. You open the door and there's cars, there's traffic, things going on. So it sort of amplifies the pressure that character was under. Yes. So yes.
Great. Next question from Rik Higashikawa, who is an NCAD student on the MA Art in the Contemporary World. Rik.
Hi, Steve. I'm wondering how your initial training in painting has informed how you might conceive an audience. I'm interested in how you think about a gaze. Who do you have in mind when you're making work?
Well, I think we all start with perspective. I mean, since I was 5 years old, again, you get your crayon, and you're dealing with the frame from day one perspective. That's, again, for me, it was an evolution from the crayon to the paintbrush to the camera. You know, dealing with that, and I think that sort of, you know, constantly having this sort of this frame of reference always. This has always been my reference. If it's crayon, if it's paint. So therefore, I think that builds up a sort of a real sort of understanding of the gaze as well, because again, you're sort of, you know, there's an intimacy, and you step back, and there's a sort of a much more broader sort of viewpoint. You know, there's a microscope and the telescope. So you get this, and then you get this, and you get this. So that's been a constant, I imagine. A help, for sure, absolutely. And actually, in fact, even physically making a bloody canvas, and, you know, that, and the frame, and, you know, I think that also definitely, you know, I wasn't afraid of it. And I was very what's the word I'm looking for, familiar with it. I think we all are, really. I think painting helped just because I was studying it. And also, you know, again, you're making an image through a paintbrush, through text, through touching, through mark making, and, you know, it's very, that's definitely helped a lot, for sure, in a way of what an image is, and what an image could be, and being very tactile with the image rather than just so sort of photographic. You're getting, there's an intimacy, there's a physicality to the actual image, which I think helped. And what was the other question?
That's basically it. Or yeah, who do you think about in terms of your audience? Who do you imagine are watching your films, or is that something you factor in?
I don't. I think, you know, everybody. You know, I don't want to. You know, there's not that person. No, it's everybody. Yeah. Cool.
Also thinking about Grenfell. So when that happened, were you thinking about the families, or were you kind of taking into consideration how they might view your film as well, or? Yeah,
that's we did. We were very. I mean, look, I shot that picture. I shot that artwork 5.5 years before we showed it. And when we shot it, we did a lot of community talking on what we want to do. We talked to the 3 or 4 conversations, and then we the local church and the people and everybody. We were very, very, obviously, I wanted to be very careful. I mean, somehow I needed permission to do that, and then we did it. And of course, you know, again, it wasn't when I shot it. That wasn't the time to show it immediately. So we sat on it for 5.5 years before we actually eventually presented at the Serpentine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last question is from Fyn Bullard-Roche, who's a second-year UCD Creative and Cultural Industry student.
Thank you. Hi, Steve. Hey. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, you said that the film industry is often the leader in changing people's minds and perceptions. Mm-hmm. What role do you think film has in portraying decisive moments and/or moments of crisis? And does film have a role in tackling slow violence, for example, climate change?
Yeah, I just feel that this it's one of those. I mean, I don't know. I just feel that there's a power in filmmaking, or even, you know, again, television now. We saw what happened recently with what happened in the UK with the post office scandal, and how people reacted to that from some sort of, you know, TV drama. And, you know, to a certain extent, not at the same extent, because I think being in people's homes is very different from, say, something like Grenfell, which we're touring around the UK. You know, when you're in someone's home, there's intimacy, there's people reacting in a way which could bypass the political, which could bypass the media and get straight into people's sort of hearts, because you're guests in their house, and therefore it can actually, you know, inform people, make people have a way of acting beyond any kind of obstacles that the media or politicians try to put in your way. And that's powerful. I think cinema has done that as well. You know, again, again, it's one of those things where I think it's possible for sure. Again, I feel that when we did again another example, maybe you've seen, of course, is Hunger, because when we made Hunger, we didn't know, to be honest with you, what would happen when it came out. We had no idea. And I feel that sometimes an artwork, whatever it is, film, whatever, can actually be an object to test the temperature of a situation. And the funny thing, when we did Hunger, nothing happened. You know, meaning that, you know, there was a situation where, you know, people could, you know, again, also what I think what a picture could do is not necessarily, picture can't do anything, but what they can do is initiate a dialogue, advance a dialogue. and that's it. So that's why we'll be happy. We're same with 12 years. Same thing happened with 12 years. I remember, because at that time, with slavery in the United States or anywhere else, people, you saw the evidence of things not seen, but people weren't really talking about it in a way, or people, one could dismiss it. But what we did with the 12 years is somehow create something which can actually create something, an object, a film, but can advance the conversations, because you start at that point, you start a conversation. That's as much, not the picture can't change anything, but you can actually sort of trigger a situation where people start a conversation. And that's powerful. That as you as an individual, as a filmmakers here or whatever, you can actually do that, and it does. Yeah, it's fantastic that you could actually do that, and you go beyond, bypass the media, bypass the politics, and actually, as an artist, actually have something to sort of contribute to a conversation. That's about it.
What would you say to students, Steve, who look at a subject and say, "That's too big for me. That's too scary. I don't want to take that on"?
I don't know, depending on what it is.
I suppose I'm thinking about the ways in which you, as an artist, have...
Well, I don't choose a subject.
Okay.
Again, it's not like, oh, I'm going to go out and do this, I'm going to go out and do... I'm going to make a movie about, Bobby Sands, oh, I'm going to do a movie about the sex addiction, oh, I'm going to do a movie about slavery, but then you think about it. But that was not, I'm not a provocateur. I'm not interested in nonsense. I'm not interested in sort of certain kind of ways of just, because when I made Hunger, I thought that's going to be the first movie and the last movie I ever going to make. And I thought, okay, if this is the first movie, last movie I'm going to make, I want to go out with 2 guns blazing. I thought, I'll take some people with me, and they take me down, but guess what, I'll take some with me as well. Because I didn't give a shit. I thought, okay, I'm going to make this picture, and that's it, and it's going to be the first and last movie I make. Because that's it. Every movie I make, I think it's going to be my last picture. And I think that's what you've got to think. That's what you've got to think. You can be, I'm going to make this one, I'm going to make another one later, I'm going to make another third one. No, because, you get by a bus. I think it's all or nothing. Yeah. It's all or nothing. And I think that's how I think, because the next picture, for me, it's all or that's it, because it has to be. Who gets lucky to make another picture or a third, or, I don't know how, but I did. But I never thought that I would. But I thought, okay, let me challenge it again. Sex addiction. Okay, let me challenge it again. Let's do it again. So, widows. Again, I'm not trying to sort of provoke, but I just think I need to do the things I need to do. And often, things come to me, and I think, okay, well, yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not interested in provocative. It's just... not interested. But also these things, but these things should be made.
Yeah.
Certain things should be made, and they're not made. Okay, I'll make that, that's it, sorry.
And these are the reasons why this room is filled. These films resonate with us, because other people are not making these films,
Good.
Yeah. I know there will be questions from the audience. I think we have some people with roving mics. So one there. Put your hand up if you'd like to ask Steve a question. So there's a hand just there.
So you spoke about how timing is really important. Your small arts project, Red, White and Blue, came out at a very important time during the Black Lives Matter movement, as it was a piece that dealt with racism within the policing. How do you think that altered how people perceived it?
I think also because it came out during COVID. I think, did it come out during COVID? Well, post-COVID, I think, kind of COVID, post-COVID. And of course, George Floyd, at that moment, it was the same, unfortunately, the same year. So, I think that timing was huge, because everybody's eyes were looking at in that situation. And of course, I think that was, so that was, it was pretty heavy. And also it's a very strange story, because the policeman that John Baker was portraying in because John there was a Black Lives Matter a rally in London, and he did this very emotional speech. And funny enough, the policeman he was portraying in the picture was in the audience. It was a real kind of strange sort of cacophony of things which happened at that time. And it sort of definitely did resonate. It was a moment in the picture where things just sort of happened, and it was very important, again, how the timing sort of occurred. But again, I think that hopefully it would have been hopefully interesting at any time, but yes, it was amplified because of that moment. And it was at that time people were looking for those debates, and we were there to accommodate it, for sure, yeah.
That film has one of my favourite shots of yours, where the camera stays in the car, the father leaves the car and embraces John.
Yeah. I think also for filmmakers here, economy of means. You know, Robbie told me a camera movement should be as simple as a cat jumping on the table, as effortless as a cat jumping on the table. Just the right amount of effort, but elegant. So if you don't have to move the camera, don't move the camera. You know, there's no reason to sort of again for filmmakers. Thanks.
Another question, please. Yeah, just there.
Like out of actors you've worked with, who do you think inspired you the most, and how?
I mean, goodness gracious! I just with such Nolan, who's extraordinary. I mean, she's interesting. She's watching eat cornflakes. It's fascinating. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, how's that work? How's that possible? Someone like obviously Michael Fassbender. I mean, when I worked with Michael, I thought every actor was like that. I was wrong. I thought, oh, this is amazing. This is normal. But then you meet, oh, okay. There are exceptions. And I think, obviously, my relationship with Michael, we had 3 films together. That would have to be, obviously, to answer your question, that would have to be the sort of the thing that we did. Because also we grew up together in film. Because when we were knocking about to get Hunger, you know, it was fun. It was funny because like no one was expecting it. And I have a smile on my face because every time we just had a laugh. And you know, Michael is such a beautiful person, and such a great actor because he. You know, it was his time. He knew that it was all or nothing. And we left it on film. I said, leave it on film. Just leave it on film and then walk away. As long as you leave it on film, we're good. If it's a good day, bad day, but you leave it, you do everything. And we did that. And it's crazy. It was wonderful. And then we did Shame together, and that was, again, and then obviously 12 years. And that was, we have hopefully at one point we'll work again together. But that's some of the best times I've ever had. Working with an actor, of course, with Saoirse as well. That was pretty special too. So yeah, there you have it.
Another question, maybe from a little further back. Yeah, there was a hand just there. Yeah.
Hi Steve, thanks so much. If you're familiar with Letterboxd, what are your top 4 favorite films?
I'm not familiar. I'm not on social media.
You're not familiar? No. Anyway, what are some films that inspire you?
Like this on the website. No, you know, Battle of Algiers, The Apartment. I mean, I can't
Where do you start?
Well, it's online. I can't remember all the best. Battle of Algiers, The Apartment. I don't know. Tokyo Story. I mean, you know, again, yeah. You know, I'm not so. Listen. When I'm on the film set, when I'm making a movie, I'm not thinking about Tchaikovsky, Kieslowski, or Marx Scorsese. I'm not even thinking of any of that nonsense, you know. I'm present, I'm there. Where do I put the camera? I'm not thinking of any of that. When I'm on the set, I'm like, the human motion, where is it going? What's the scene about? How do I do this? I love cinema, but I'm not in love with cinema. I love cinema, but I'm interested in, I love life. You know, when I'm in a movie set, I'm interested in life. Where to put the camera, I'm there. Don't get me wrong, because all of those movies that I've seen, all those things obviously have some kind of influence, have some kind of sort of resonance with me. But when I'm on a set, I'm interested in, okay, what's happening here? Where do I put the camera? How do I shoot this? How do I do this? Because how is it, you know, how am I, if I'm not, I'm not a fan. I'm a maker here, I'm there, I have to be present. And how do I make this? But don't get me wrong, watching all these pictures, you have an idea, but of having the influence, but the influence is more interesting to me is life, because then you can do something better, or you know, not better. Yeah, well, our job again is to do something better than what's already existing, if one can. You know, that's the job. So I'm more interested in life than, you know, movies in that way. I'm not that guy that lenses with Robbie. What lens? Fuck that shit. Focus on no bullshit. It's all rubbish. Don't get up that person who's trying to one-up you on that, what lens, what new gadget. Fuck that shit. Focus on where you are, what you're at now. You know, you can smell it. You know, again, you can hear it. You can taste it. Focus. You know, forget that shit. Sorry, I get really up. I get sort of a bit of wild movies. Maybe a bit movie. Shut up.
Yes, there's one hand up right back there.
So the first one is, nowadays some films, they seem to be made for this kind of enjoyable experience, and some of the films are made for like you say, like expose the issues, or maybe, as you said before, like lead to a conversation. And how do you see this kind of distinction? And the second question is that as films like art that are kind of like easy to be touched by the public, what kind of response do you expect from
I'm only going to answer one question, Geezer, because that last one is long. So let's do the first one. Let's give someone else a chance. No, I want to entertain. I don't think there's a differentiation from. It should be entertaining. It should be engaging, for sure. I mean, you want to be attractive. You don't want to sort of repel people. You want to embrace them. So I think you could do both. You should be able to do both. Something which is sort of engrossing, as I would say. Rather than it can be entertaining, of course, but engrossing is much more. You know, for me, it was much more interesting in some ways, and also could be entertaining, but engrossing is something. So the person isn't, when they're watching, they don't feel like wasting their time. It's not just they're not being slapped around or put a hammer on the head every 5 minutes. No, it's engaging and engrossing. Okay, next question.
One final question. Yes, just there in the middle.
Hello, Steve.
Hi.
My question revolves around the Small Act series. Did you run into any difficulty gathering the information for the films, or did you run into any contradictory accounts regarding like some of the films, like Education, for example?
Well, Education was sort of based on me in a way. Yeah. I didn't go to that kind of school. I was one of those kids that would have gone to that school if those sort of parents hadn't stood up and changed the direction and the course of educational history. That would have been me for sure. So that was based on my sort of background as such. But contradictory? No. You sort of. What did you do? Yes and no. I mean, look. When you make something like that, there's always going to be someone say, "Oh, well, that's not how it actually happened," or "That's not exactly how it was." But I'm not making a bloody documentary. I'm making a movie. And again, it's often about getting as close to a situation as you understand. It's not. Sometimes the truth can be seen in other ways. Meaning that again, you want the truth for sure. There's no question about it. It's not a question. But how you get to somewhere is very important. I mean, that person maybe didn't sound like that, or that person wasn't wearing that particular type of clothes, or he never said it like that. He said this, but if you get to the sort of end point where it has a sort of resonance of what was going on, a feel, that's good for me. Again, and I think that's very important. But of course, one would make every effort to get to how you thought it could have occurred. I mean, no one was there with a camera. No one was there taking notes on everything what was going on. So you have to give it your best shot. But again, within the sort of realms of a film. That's it, really. No. Do you have one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Right at the front here.
That was quick, wasn't it? Go on, Steve,
I'm not a student, so is that okay?
Of course.
Really, the question I want to ask actually does involve students. I think I want to know how you would encourage students to think about AI, whether they should be fearful of it or how they should embrace it, because everybody's talking about it and it's like the elephant in the room.
I think you obviously have to embrace it. I mean, it's here. It's not.
How they study it and how they should put it in their work, perhaps, or not.
Again, maybe in some ways, in some regards, I'm sort of old-fashioned in a way, because I feel it's a good idea. Look, right now there's more practical situations for you to sort of train yourself to do things rather than AI. I mean, that's just how it is. It's not here yet. It's arrived, but tangibly to get it or to be work with it, it's not wholly here. So I would just sort of train your eye, and therefore you can make better decisions using the AI. That's what it is, really. I mean, and that's until it's here and it's available in universities to train your eye. So when you get to a point where you can actually get your hands on it, you can use it in a much more effective way. I mean, I remember when I was in NYU, which I hated for 3 months. I was cutting, and before, and also I was cutting on the steam bag, clunk, clink, or the guillotine, and all that kind of business. And then again, then it became sort of digital. But even what was interesting about editing it in that way was, yes, the physical. Because what was interesting about that, because when you sort of cut your movie and you spliced it and you stringed it up in the bins and marked it with a China pen or whatever it was, a sort of a white pen, rather. There was time. There was time from going to the bin and taking the thing out to process the cut. Now you can do it so quick. You can do it so quick. So for me, what was interesting was pacing and allowing things to resonate. So I think with this thing with AI, to do it practically yourselves and then maybe use it afterwards in one way or the other, I think it only makes you make better decisions, basically. Rather than people giving you stuff, you've experienced it, you've researched it, you've tried it out physically.
Great question, thank you.
No, thank you.
Steve, one of the things that really pleased me when I was doing my research for this event was finding out that we both share a love for the Miles Davis track Blue and Green. Mm-hmm. Could you just say something about why that is such an important piece of music for you?
It's kind of random.
It's very random. I'll tell you why.
No, I like it, don't worry.
I have a book about Miles Davis coming out next year. That's why I'm asking.
Quote me. Okay, no. What I like about it, this track Blue and Green, I remember very well that at Goldsmiths, I remember there was a seminar, and I said, okay, I want to put this, and I put it on, and then it was over. And what I loved about it was the certain kind of, okay, so in some ways it goes back to a situation of course, improvisation. Mm-hmm. You spoke about this. And also there's a kind of classical, which is sort of, Bill Evans, which is is based on the Bach. It's kind of based on Bach chords, which is, yeah. But also now it's Miles coming in with a sort of improvisational situation on sort of classical music to some extent. And what I like about it is the fact that it's sort of, you're sort of stepping into the unknown and you're seeing where it could go. And these other musicians, Cannonball
Adderley, yeah.
Him as well. John Coltrane.
Yeah.
And
Billy Joe Jones and Bill Evans.
It was just one of those situations where it's a collaborative situation, but everyone's in tune. Everyone is sort of coming together, but based on these classical chords, and to improvise and to find each other and to sort of give. It's almost like it's like a baton. You pass it on to the next person. I just love this sort of element that you could go through a certain kind of confidence. Mm. We're talking about this sort of confidence, being oneself. One can find themselves. Being oneself, one can find themselves, and it's very scary. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm going back to the first question. Being yourself is very scary because there's all other people. Look, it's difficult, but in order to sort of find yourself, you've got to be yourself unashamedly. So if you don't know an answer, you don't answer. Find yourself by being yourself. Because if you try to squeeze yourself into what other people think, then it takes longer to get to where you need to go, or how you want to find where you need to go. And it's very important that as artists, as educators, it's very important that you find yourself. And you don't always fit into what other people think is right. But in order to get there, you want us to sort of be confident in yourself. And it's sometimes you're going to rub people the wrong way, but that's how it is. But it's sometimes you're going to take the sort of that route. Yeah. It's unavoidable. It's bumpy, but then you get to the sudden it's downhill. Yeah.
Well, stick with me. It occurs.
I don't know how that was from sort of Blue and Green, Miles Davis, but hey, we got an answer.
It occurs to me, Steve, that like Miles Davis, you're an uncompromising artist, but you're an artist of great sensitivity. You're always, like Miles, extending your repertoire stylistically and formally.
Well, no, I think also it's one of those situations where, again, you've got to find it. You've got to find it. It's there. It's there, and you've got to find it. And sometimes you could be a magnet. Sometimes you can want something so bad, and you could become a magnet, and it kind of sticks. It comes to you. But it takes time. But you want it so bad, you find it. But it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's bloody rewarding. it's like scoring a goal in the FA Cup final, and it's like, oh my God, it's just, and then, amazing. But sometimes you hit the post. It's not going to work. It doesn't always come.
There's a fantastic quote from the cultural theorist Stuart Hall. He said, when I was 19 or 20, Miles Davis put his finger on my soul. And I think for many of us in the room, that's the way we feel about your work. It touches us, it moves us, it's powerful to us. I was digging in my record collection last night, Steve, and I'd like to give you this as a token of thanks from all of us. This is Miles Davis live at the Plug Nickel. Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter. It's apparently a limited edition of 500. But
thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Close by thanking our Creative Futures Academy team, PJ Matthews, Amy McDonald, Emma Beasley, Dunk Murphy. This couldn't have happened without you. David Crean on sound, Cormac Downs and team on video. Our wonderful partners at DIFF, Gráinne Humphreys, Sam Javid, Kate Bow, and our 6 student interviewees who I think did an amazing job today. Put your hands together for them.